Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today I am going to discuss Delhi edition dated 17th May 2018 of The Hindu. So let's begin. We will discuss this article which appears on page 8 and it reads Rupee Rout. So this article is basically talking about the depreciation of rupee and its impact on the Indian economy. So as you all must be reading in the newspapers recently that rupee has been depreciating against the US dollar. It has weakened by around 6.2% in 2018 itself. So you should understand what are the reasons as to why rupee is depreciating. So the first reason is due to rise in global crude oil prices. Secondly, the rise in geopolitical tensions in West Asia. And thirdly, the dwindling global supply of crude oil. So in the current scenario, because of these three reasons, rupee is depreciating. Now an important point to note here is that we have read that rupee is depreciating. So from your core knowledge of macroeconomics, you should be knowing that when a currency depreciates, then exports become cheaper and imports become expensive. And as a result, exports increase and imports decrease. However, in the case of India, this is not happening. In India, the merchandise exports have not increased despite rupee depreciation. Also, the value of imports has been increasing. Why? Because the prices of crude oil have been rising and one of the major imports for India is crude oil. So because prices are rising, therefore the value of imports for India is also increasing, and this has finally resulted in widening of India's trade deficit. So please understand these two current situations in the Indian economy. The first situation is that rupee has been depreciating and at the same time trade deficit in the country is rising. Another reason why rupee is depreciating is because of tightening of monetary policy by the US Federal Reserve. And the negative impact of this tightening of monetary policy by the US Federal Reserve is that it is resulting in capital outflows from India. And how are these capital outflows happening? This is happening because the foreign portfolio investors or FPIs are selling off the securities. And these securities mainly include the government securities or government bonds. And further, the negative impact of this is that it has resulted in increasing the government bond yields. Let's understand this process again. We said that one of the reasons why rupee is depreciating is due to the tight monetary policy by the US Federal Reserve. Now when US Federal Reserve is following a tight monetary policy, the interest rates in United States will increase. And when interest rates are high in US, that means it will be beneficial for the investors to invest in United States. So what they will do is that they will take out their money from emerging countries like India and they will put their money into United States. And this will result in capital outflows from India. How will this happen? This will happen because foreign portfolio investors are selling off the government securities in India. And when there is excess selling of government securities or an excess supply of government securities in the market, it results in an increase in the government bond yields, or we can say a decline in the government bond prices, which is not good for our economy. Now, in order to solve this entire situation of rupee depreciation, one option can be that the RBI can increase its policy rates. But looking at the current macroeconomic situation of the country, this solution is not feasible. As this is written here as well, slide of the currency and a widening trade deficit present the RBI with a huge dilemma. Why is RBI facing this dilemma? Because at present, inflation in the country is also high and hence RBI is facing a dilemma here and it cannot increase policy rates. So what other solution is left with the government? According to the article, in order to boost exports in the country which have been declining, one step that the government can take is to provide easy GST refunds to the exporters and to adopt tariff and non-tariff barriers in order to control the imports. So basically in this discussion we have talked about one of the important macroeconomic indicators of the economy, that is the exchange rate of our currency, and we have said that rupee in the economy is depreciating. And what is its impact? Basically, rupee is depreciating because of a rise in global crude oil prices, rising geopolitical tensions in West Asia, and dwindling global supply of crude oil. Now, despite depreciation of rupee, which should technically result in increasing the exports and decreasing the imports in the economy, what is happening is that merchandise exports are not increasing and value of imports is increasing in the economy. And as a result, trade deficit in the country is increasing, which is not good for our economy because balance of payments is deteriorating in this sense. Another reason why rupee is depreciating is due to the tight monetary policy that has been adopted by the United States Federal Reserve. This is resulting in capital outflows from India and a consequent increase in the government bond yields in the country. So a solution to this problem can be that RBI can increase its policy rates in order to prevent the capital outflows from India. Because if RBI increases the policy rates, then capital will come back to the country. But there is a dilemma that RBI is facing. That dilemma is because inflation is high in the country and hence RBI cannot increase the policy rates to that extent. So what are the other solutions that are left? Firstly, in order to boost exports, the government can take measures to provide easy GST refunds to the exporters, and the government can impose tariff and non-tariff barriers in order to control imports. This topic is important from the economy section in the UPSC syllabus. With this, we will move on to the next article. Next, we will discuss this article that appears on page 7 and it reads, Swachh rankings are out, Indore gets clean city tag. So this article talks about the Swachh Sarvekshan 2018, which has assessed cleanliness of urban local bodies of various cities. This Sarvekshan was organized by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and it comes under the aegis of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan Urban. So as per the rankings of this Swachh Sarvekshan 2018, the best performing state in terms of cleanliness is Jharkhand, followed by Maharashtra, which is followed by Chhattisgarh. Similarly, the best performing city in terms of cleanliness is Indore, followed by Bhopal and Chandigarh. So we have understood about the meaning of Swachh Sarvekshan 2018 and which ministry conducts this Sarvekshan. We have also seen the rankings of the Sarvekshan in 2018. Also, we should understand what are the metrics on the basis of which this Sarvekshan is conducted or on what basis these rankings are assigned. So the on-field survey for this Swachh Sarvekshan 2018 has been conducted by an independent agency and the data for the ranking of the cities is calculated on the basis of 3 sources. And these 3 sources are service level progress, which has a weight of 35%. Basically, this service level progress verifies whether the systems and processes are in place in the urban local bodies in order to implement the Swachh Bharat mission in the most efficient way. The second source is citizen feedback, which also has a weight of 35%. Under this, the Sarvekshan basically collected feedback directly from the citizens and monitored the performance of the Swachhta app, which is a citizen's grievance mobile app. And the third source is direct observation, which has a weight of 30%. And this direct observation aims to verify and assess the general cleanliness in cities by making random field visits in different parts of the city and public convenience places. So we have understood from this discussion about the Swachh Sarvekshan 2018, which was aimed at assessing the cleanliness of urban local bodies across the country. This Sarvekshan was organized by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and it comes under the aegis of Swachh Bharat Mission Urban. As per the latest rankings, the best performing state in terms of cleanliness is Jharkhand and the best performing city in terms of cleanliness is Indore. Also, the rankings have been decided on the basis of 3 categories. These are service level progress, which verifies whether systems and processes are in place in urban local bodies to implement the Swachh Bharat mission. The second source is citizen feedback, which aims to collect feedback directly from the citizens and monitor the performance of Swachhta app, which is a citizen's grievance mobile app. And the third category is direct observation, which aims to verify and assess general cleanliness in the cities by making random field visits in different parts of the city. So since such rankings are usually asked in the prelims exam, so you should note all the important points pertaining to the Swachh Sarvekshan 2018. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we'll discuss appears on page 11 and it reads, Cabinet approves new policy for biofuels. This topic forms a part of GS paper 3 in the UPSC syllabus. It says that the Union Cabinet, chaired by the Prime Minister, has approved a national policy on biofuels. And this policy seeks to help the farmers to dispose of their surplus stock and to reduce India's oil import dependence. So next we will try to understand some of the features of this national policy on biofuels. Firstly, this policy has categorized biofuels into two categories. These categories are basic biofuels and advanced biofuels. These basic biofuels will include first generation bioethanol and biodiesel, and advanced biofuels will include second generation ethanol, municipal solid waste to drop-in fuels, third generation biofuels, bio-CNG, etc. Secondly, this national policy on biofuels expands the scope of raw materials for ethanol production. Also, this policy allows the use of surplus food grains for the production of ethanol and blending it with petrol. Also, this national policy provides for viability gap funding for 2G ethanol. It also provides additional tax incentives and a higher purchase price. These tax incentives and purchase price are higher as compared to the first generation bioethanol. Also, this scheme encourages setting up of supply chain mechanisms for biodiesel production from things like non-edible oilseeds, used cooking oil and short gestation crops. So we have understood some of the salient features of the national policy on biofuels. This policy categorizes biofuels as basic and advanced biofuels. It expands the scope of raw materials for the production of ethanol. It allows the use of surplus food grains for ethanol production and blending with petrol. It provides for viability gap funding for 2G ethanol and also provides additional tax incentives and higher purchase price for 2G ethanol. And lastly, this policy encourages setting up of supply chain mechanisms for biodiesel production from non-edible oilseeds, used cooking oil and short gestation crops. Apart from this, you should also know what are the expected benefits of this national policy on biofuels. So the expected benefits from this are, firstly, it will help to reduce import dependency on crude oil. Secondly, it will promote cleaner environment by reducing crop burning and conversion of agricultural waste to biofuels, and further reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Thirdly, it will have several health benefits for the society. Next, it will help in converting municipal solid waste to biofuels. It will lead to infrastructure investment in rural areas. It will help in providing employment in plant operations, village level entrepreneurs and supply chain management. And further, it will effectively help in generating additional income for the farmers. So with the help of this discussion, we have understood some key points about the national policy on biofuels, and all these points are important from both prelims as well as mains exam point of view. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we'll discuss appears on page 5 and it reads, Cliff Habitat needs a vulture safe zone. This topic forms a part of prelims syllabus under the heading General Issues on Environmental Ecology, Biodiversity and Climate Change. This news article says that a team of forest officials from Telangana visited the Jataya Conservation Breeding Center in Pinjore, Haryana, and this conservation breeding center has undertaken an initiative of a vulture safety zone, and this initiative is being explored and it is being planned that it will be implemented in Telangana as well to make it safer for the vultures. So in today's discussion, we will try to understand some key points about vultures, why their population has declined, what is the meaning of a vulture safety zone, where are vulture safety zones in India, and what measures have been taken or should be taken to conserve vultures. So at present, there are 9 varieties of vultures in India, and a drastic decline has been experienced in the population of vultures. So we'll try to understand why the population of vultures has declined. As you all know that vultures feed on dead animals, and these dead animals were given diclofenac for their treatment. And the vultures hence indirectly consume this diclofenac, and this has been identified as one of the major reasons for the deaths of vultures on a mass scale. This diclofenac leads to kidney failure in vultures. Hence, in order to reduce this negative impact of diclofenac, an alternative drug has been suggested which is less harmful, and that is meloxicam. So till now we have understood that there are a total of 9 varieties of vultures in India, and there has been a drastic decline in their population, mainly because vultures feed on dead animals, and those dead animals are given diclofenac for their treatment. And the vultures indirectly consume this diclofenac, which has led to deaths of vultures on a mass scale. This diclofenac leads to kidney failure in vultures, and hence, in order to reduce this impact, a less harmful alternative drug has been suggested, which is meloxicam. Next, we will try to understand some key points about vulture safe zone. The main aim of this vulture safe zone is to establish targeted awareness activities surrounding 150 kilometer radius of vulture colonies, so that no diclofenac or any other veterinary toxic drugs are found in the cattle carcasses, which are the main food for vultures. We should also know about some of the vulture safety zones in India. These vulture safety zones are in the zone between Uttarakhand to Nepal, between Jim Corbett to Dudhwa Forest in UP, Dibrugarh in Assam to North Lakhimpur in Arunachal Pradesh, in Chhattisgarh, Gujarat and Jharkhand. Apart from this, we should also know what measures have been taken to conserve the vulture population in India. Firstly, diclofenac is banned in India. Secondly, meloxicam and other safe drugs are being promoted now. Thirdly, a national action plan on vulture conservation was formulated by the Government of India in 2006 to protect the vulture population. Also, the protection status of some species of vultures has been upgraded from Schedule 4 to Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. This upgradation from Schedule 4 to Schedule 1 means that a higher protection status has been given to the species of vultures. So we have understood the meaning of a vulture safe zone, whose aim is to establish targeted awareness activities surrounding 150 kilometer radius of vulture colonies, so that no diclofenac and other harmful drugs are found in the cattle carcass, which are the main food for vultures. We have also discussed the various locations of vulture safe zones in India, and we have also talked about the measures to conserve vulture population, which are that diclofenac is banned in India and meloxicam and other safe drugs are being promoted. Also, the Government of India formulated a national action plan on vulture conservation in 2006, and the protection status of some vulture species has been upgraded from Schedule 4 to Schedule 1 in the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So all these points about vulture safe zones and the measures to conserve vulture population are important from your prelims exam point of view. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we will discuss appears on page 18, and it reads, Banned Ozone Destroying Chemical on Rise. This article also forms a part of Environment and Ecology in the UPSC syllabus, and after discussing this, we will try to solve this question as well. So the news article says that a group of scientists have found that the banned ozone depleting chemical known as CFC11 or chlorofluorocarbon 11 is on the rise. So from this discussion, we will try to understand first the importance of ozone layer. So the ozone layer lies in the stratosphere between 10 to 40 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and it protects the Earth from the ultraviolet radiation. And this ozone layer is being depleted by substances like chlorofluorocarbon or CFCs, carbon tetrachloride, etc. deplete the ozone layer. So in order to protect the ozone layer, various international agreements have been signed. So we will discuss them one by one. Firstly, we will talk about the Vienna Convention for Protection of Ozone Layer. This is a multilateral environment agreement which was agreed upon at the 1985 Vienna Conference and entered into force in 1988. This convention provides a framework for international efforts to protect the ozone layer, and these efforts are laid out in the accompanying Montreal Protocol. Another point that you should know is that this convention does not include legally binding reduction goals for the use of CFCs. Also, the Vienna Convention is the most widely ratified treaty in the United Nations history, and 197 countries have ratified this. So we've understood some points about the Vienna Convention for the Protection of Ozone Layer. It's a multilateral environment agreement which was entered into force in 1988, and it provides a framework for international efforts to protect the ozone layer. These efforts are laid out in the Montreal Protocol. Also, this convention does not include any legally binding reduction goals for the use of CFCs, and it is also the most widely ratified treaty which has been ratified by 197 countries. Next, we will try to understand some key points about the Montreal Protocol. So, the Montreal Protocol is also an international treaty to protect the ozone layer by phasing out the production of ozone depleting substances. Under this protocol, production and consumption of key ozone depleting substances such as CFC, methyl chloroform, CTC halones, and methyl bromide have been phased out globally. Also, apart from this Montreal Protocol, there is another agreement called as the Kigali Agreement. So, this Kigali Agreement has amended the Montreal Protocol, and it aims to phase out hydrofluorocarbons or HFCs, which are a family of potent greenhouse gases, and it aims to phase them out by 2040. As we've discussed earlier, that CFCs were discontinued under the Montreal Protocol, and as an alternative to CFCs, HFCs were introduced in 1990. However, it was later realized that HFCs are vigorously contributing to global warming, and as a result, the Kigali Agreement was signed to phase out these HFCs. Also, this agreement will be binding on its members from 2019. So, we have understood about the Montreal Protocol, which is an international treaty to protect ozone layer by phasing out the production of ozone depleting substances. Under it, production and consumption of key ozone depleting substances such as CFC, methyl chloroform, and methyl bromide has been phased out globally. We have also talked about the Kigali Agreement, which amended the Montreal Protocol, and it aims to phase out hydrofluorocarbons or HFCs by 2040. This is because these HFCs contribute to global warming, and this agreement will be binding on its members from 2019. Now we'll try to solve that earlier question. This was asked in prelims 2015, and it said, which one of the following is associated with the issue of control and phasing out of the use of ozone depleting substances? Options are Bretton Woods Conference, Montreal Protocol, Kyoto Protocol, and Nagoya Protocol. And we know that the correct answer is option B, that is Montreal Protocol. So such questions pertaining to ozone layer depletion and the conventions and agreements for the protection of ozone layer can be asked in the prelims exam. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we will discuss appears on page 8, and it reads, A Pilgrimage to Nepal. This article provides the highlights of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third visit to Nepal. His third visit instills significance because it is after the first elections under the new Nepali constitution and just after KP Oli's visit to India in April 2018. So in this article, according to the author, the visit was high on symbolism and less on substance. The Government of India described this visit as prime pilgrim as it involved visits to religious sites in Nepal such as Janki Mandir, Muktinath and Pashupatinath, and the focus was on religious and cultural commonalities. wherein a bus service between Janakpur and Ayodhya was inaugurated. However, according to the author, the visit was less on substance. This is because only one of the earlier commitments that were agreed upon in the visits, that is the 900 megawatt Arun 3 Hydel project, has moved forward during this visit. Also, this recent visit made priorities in cooperation in agriculture, inland waterways, and a survey for a railway line from Raxaul to Kathmandu and increasing air connectivity. According to the author, he does not consider the visit as marking a new beginning because Nepal under KP Oli now insists on the terms of equality, mutual trust, respect and mutual benefit to be included in the joint statements with India. So this article is important from your mains exam point of view because many times questions are asked on India's relations with its neighbors, and from this we have understood about PM Modi's recent visit to Nepal, which was high on symbolism and less on substance according to the author. The government of India described this visit as a prime pilgrim because the main focus was on religious and cultural commonalities. It was less on substance because only one of the commitments was moved forward during this visit, which is the 900 megawatt Hydel project. Also, during the visit, there were talks about cooperation in agriculture, inland waterways, creation of a railway line from Raxaul to Kathmandu, and air connectivity. So, the students should read this article from the mains exam point of view. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper discussion. Now, let's move on to question for the day.